So what's up, guys? After a very long break, Dragon Ball Super has made its return in manga form, and today I'm going to be reviewing the latest chapter. So let's just jump straight into it. So we have the official debut of Goten and Trunks as SAIYAMAN, and they are known as SAIYAMAN X1 and SAIYAMAN X2. And of course, if you look at their outfits, you can kind of tell that they are Mega Man themed, also the names, which I thought was really cool. I said something about that in my last video regarding this topic whenever the rough drafts were released. And I just wanted to comment that at first I wasn't a really big fan of like their helmets. Their outfits look cool. But now that I know they're going for a Mega Man-esque approach, it actually doesn't bother me near as much. I thought they were silly looking. But actually, now that I'm looking at them, the fact that they're Mega Man themed and they have the cool glass visor going from one end to the other, they're growing on me. I actually kind of like the designs more. So of course, since Goten and Trunks are the new SAIYAMAN, this scene where they're stopping criminals at the beginning of this new story is eerily similar to, the stuff that we've seen with SAIYAMAN in the past. The part where Trunks takes the dude's gun and crushes it and puts it in a bag is interesting and funny. It definitely has that same vibe as early Gohan. And when Trunks comments to the criminal that he needs to dispose of his trash properly, that's a continuation of this whole pun of like cleaning up on crime. I just want to say I really like Goten's attitude as SAIYAMAN X2. I mean, Trunks is cool and everything, but I've noticed that Goten seems to be a bit more calm. He seems to be a bit more level-headed, whereas Trunks' motivations seem much more combat-oriented, whereas Goten's seem much more pure. So I find that very interesting. If you look at the look on Trunks and Goten's face as they're fighting these criminals, you can see their fathers in them, which I find very interesting. So Goten and Trunks are proud of what a good job they did as SAIYAMAN X1 and 2, and they start practicing their poses. And it's funny because you can tell that all of this is happening simply for the fact that Goten and Trunks have idolized this hero, the Clean God, which I find very funny because they have the most powerful parents that exist like in the universe pretty much, and here they are worshiping some superhero that they see on TV, the wonders of advertisement. So Goten gets a notification on his Capsule Corp phone. They find out that it is a cyber attack, that someone's personal info had been stolen. Trunks makes this really funny joke about how they can't beat up scumbags over the internet, and I can't help but think, because Toyotaro has used the manga to complain about the Dragon Ball Super manga being illegally uploaded to the internet. He makes all kinds of little jabs and stuff at what the fandom does in terms of its use of the manga and information on the internet. And of course, this is also a global problem. This is something that happens in modern society all the time. So it's definitely a play on that aspect of like the modern world that we live in. But also, it really does kind of feel like a jab at like the downside of the internet age. So this next panel is very important, and a lot of people sort of looked over how important this was because this establishes Trunks and Goten's motivation as characters. So a lot of people were complaining about Trunks not being good with computers, and the thing about it is if you look at Trunks' characterization previously in Dragon Ball Super, you can see that he has always been a spoiled rich kid. He only does things that he's interested in, which is a running theme in Dragon Ball. Most characters only do what they want to do in terms of the Saiyans or the half-breeds and things of that nature. They have a sense of freedom that most characters in the series do not have, and that is because they have the ability to pretty much do whatever they want to do. So this is actually consistent with Trunks' characterization in the past, but it's also expanded on in this panel right here, and it's very important because this really does establish the difference between Trunks and Goten as superheroes, and you can really see their fathers in them at this point whenever they make these comments here. And Trunks says that he just wants to face off against some mighty evil and do it in style. So Trunks is in it for the combat. So that's the reason he's not good with computers, because he's a warrior. He wants to fight evildoers with style, and, that's his whole thing. Whereas Goten wants a peaceful world. So Goten gets a call from his mother, who's freaking out on him because he's supposed to be, coming home. And as Goten is changing out of his superhero outfit, that causes Trunks to want to work on their transformation sequences. So he decides he's going to go to Pilaf and ask him to help upgrade their suits to where they can use watches to transform, much like his mother did for Gohan in the Dragon Ball Z era. And speaking of the Dragon Ball Z era, this little panel with Goten where he's leaving with Nimbus is very, very reminiscent of that era with Gohan as well. I am loving the characterization of both characters here. I actually think it makes a ton of sense that they are acting the way they are. A lot of people were very critical of their characterization and how they're being expanded on as characters, but personally, I think that this makes a lot of sense. I think that this seems like a natural progression in comparison to how we have seen Goten and Trunks portrayed in the past in Dragon Ball Super. So due to the fact that Trunks can't just transform and make himself back into Trunks or SAIYAMAN X1 is a problem for him here because he runs into his grandfather and his grandmother. And I have to say, she looks so young. I don't think that she uses the Dragon Balls, which is really interesting. I don't know why they choose to make Bulma's mother so consistently young looking, but they do, and I find it very interesting. So Trunks gets caught by his grandparents, and Dr. Brief is walking his pet dinosaur. Now, this is a callback to when Dr. Brief was first introduced in the original Dragon Ball. It was revealed to us back then that Dr. Brief has a weak spot for animals and dinosaurs, and the fact that he has his own personal pet dinosaur that he walks around and that Trunks knows him is actually pretty funny and cool. Actually, it's a really cool callback to the original Dragon Ball, and I love that the dinosaur acts like a dog. I don't know, like Dragon Ball it has great action. You know, we all love the action in Dragon Ball, but stuff like this is a breath of fresh air for me. So Dr. Brief comments that, you know, more and more youngsters know how to fly nowadays. Now, I think that's also a nod at Dragon Ball Online because eventually Gohan creates a book about chi control that teaches the entire world to fly. So I think that might be a nod at that. Also, I don't know if you've played Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, but in Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, Dr. Brief himself also shows interest in learning about chi control in order to make it into a scientific study. So this very well could be a nod at, you know, Dr. Brief's role in the future of Dragon Ball Super. As Trunks is flying away, he's afraid that his mother's going to find out that he's been blowing off studying in order to be a hero, which is pretty funny because she's not Chi-Chi. I'm honestly not sure Bulma would really freak out on him that much in comparison to like Goten. But I really like how naturally they are having Bulma and Chi-Chi play motherly roles in this chapter, because in the past it seemed kind of unnatural because Bulma, she runs around. She's motherly in some aspects, but she's very free as an individual. She's a very free spirit. And Chi-Chi, you know, her antics normally seem extreme because we've seen Goten and Gohan as young children in the past being bossed around by their mother. But at this point, it actually feels like Chi-Chi's antics are necessary for Goten, and it also feels like Bulma's parenting is necessary for Trunks. So I really enjoy that. So then we get this nod at Panchi, Dr. Brief's wife. She's always had a role as she always is going out to water her garden, work on her garden. She loves gardening. So I like that Toyotaro calls attention to that character trait here. But also, there's a few other nods here. So Dr. Brief offers to buy Pan a ship because she can't fly, an aircraft. And this is a nod at Bulma at a very, very, very young age being able to fly an aircraft. So if you didn't catch that, that's the reason, that's what they're referencing here, is the fact that Bulma has been able to fly aircraft at a very young age. So Dr. Brief's pet dinosaur starts barking and freaking out, and it is because the capsule bots are freaking out and running amok in town and causing a mess. Suddenly, one of Dr. Hito's biological androids, very similar to the early models of androids that Dr. Gero made, and I'm pretty sure that's what they're going for here. The reason that Dr. Hito's android creations, his biological android creations, look the way they do is it's a nod at the fact that Dr. Gero had to go through a process to create all the androids in the past. So this is obviously a nod at the fact that, you know, Dr. Hito is developing as a scientist. But he also could be, you know, just working with what he has as well. So Trunks goes to meet an older Pilaf, and Pilaf and the gang all work for Capsule Corporation. They all have a job for Capsule Corporation now. And I think that's a really fitting conclusion to the original character arc that Pilaf and the gang had. But what's really interesting here is Trunks made a deal with Pilaf to help him steal the Dragon Balls to have the watch made for him to be able to transform into the SAIYAMAN X1 at any point. And here it's pretty much revealed to us and confirmed what I was saying earlier. Bulma's not going to be as bad as Chi-Chi in terms of her being strict about what the boys do and do not do. We saw that also in Superhero because, he told Goten not to tell his mother that she came and got him to help fight Cell Max. So she's not going to care. Like, Trunks, I'm glad that Trunks is scared of his mother. You need that as a parent. But, like, yeah, Bulma's way more chill than Chi-Chi is. And you can tell in this scene where she's asking Pilaf and Trunks what she's conspiring about, you can tell that she knows exactly what's going on. So here it's here Trunks' crush on Mai is expanded upon. You can tell as Mai has matured that this little crush that Trunks has on her is becoming more awkward. You can literally see it in their body language. And, of course, due to the fact that Mai and the crew were children before, their mentality, their personality and things were always going to be very different than their teenage years. Now that she is a 50-year-old woman in a teenager's body, she's definitely acting much more rational and less childlike. So this is a natural progression for Trunks and Mai's relationship. Mai would be awkward about this. I mean, there's just no doubt about it. So then Bulma confronts Pilaf about the little deal that he had with Trunks to nab the Dragon Balls as a result of helping Trunks develop that watch so he could transform into Saiyaman X1. And this is really, like, if you're like an old school Dragon Ball fan, this is just very enjoyable because, Pilaf was a huge character at the beginning of Dragon Ball. His relationship with Bulma, Bulma should honestly, now that they're older, she should know who they are. And it kind of seems like she does. Like, it kind of seems like she knows that it's the same Pilaf and crew who almost took them out because of the way she treats him and the fact that he is after the Dragon Balls. So I find that very interesting. So now, in the next scene, we are introduced to, I think this is the bully of, either the school or just the local area, or maybe he's just a douchebag, I don't know. But he goes to throw a can out of his car, and it seems like he's throwing it to hit a baby, which is just really messed up. And Trunks, like, is on his bike, flicks it away, and hits the guy with his own garbage, which I thought was hilarious. Trunks is, like, he acts really cool right here. I really like his characterization in this particular page and with these particular panels. I think it's awesome. So after Trunks gets caught sneaking into class, his teacher threatens to kick him out of school. And this is where, Trunks and Goten's school life is really established. It's also established here, much like in Dragon Ball GT, that Trunks does not want to run Capsule Corporation. He wants to do his thing as a superhero. He wants an exciting life. He wants a life full of he doesn't want to work a dead-end job, for a super rich corporation that his parents owns. He wants to have experiences. He wants to do crazy things. And nobody can blame him for that. So, like I said, this is very consistent in terms of his characterization in the past, and it's also very natural. It feels natural in terms of his character. So, Trunks' words bite him in the ass as we are introduced to the cast for his high school era experience. And, of course, all of their names are puns on school supplies, so that's interesting. And then it's revealed to us that Trunks has a fear of ghosts. Now, I've seen the internet literally losing it over this, and I really don't think it's that big of a deal. I think people tend to forget, especially when you see how silly Goten thinks Trunks' fear of ghosts is. I think people forget that Gotenks is not Trunks. Gotenks is a mix of Trunks and Goten. So the fact that the mix of the two of them allows Trunks to conquer his fear of ghosts and use them as a weapon via the ghost kamikaze attack is actually pretty creative, and it's a cool little gag. I mean, there's literally nothing wrong with it at all. It's consistent. The people are just like finding inconsistencies where they don't exist at this point. So Rula is going to basically help Trunks get the excitement he's been looking for. And then we've got this really cool panel of Goten leaving school with this kid who looks like Miles Morales and a girl in the background that looks like Gwen from The Amazing Spider-Man, which I thought was a pretty cool little reference. Toyotaro is like loading this up full of references, etc. So then Trunks and Goten go home. They play video games together. And here's the thing. This characterization of Goten and Trunks, the more I think about it, the more it makes a ton of sense. Because if you look back at one of the most defining experiences of Goten and Trunks' life, it is the day that Boo wiped out everyone that they loved. That would explain why Trunks has this craving to fight some big evil being, because he never got that satisfying defeat that he wanted during the previous era of the Buu saga. And Goten, he couldn't stand the idea that the world was going to be destroyed and that he was going to lose everyone that he loved. And so he wants to create a peaceful world. It actually makes a lot of sense. And I'm glad, despite the fact that Goten and Trunks have this like idea that they want to do things for very pure reasons, I like that, because it's similar to what Gohan wanted to do. Like, his intentions were pure as the Great Saiyaman. He didn't want to go run around wiping people out. He just wanted to clean the streets of crime, very much like Goten and Trunks here. And I like that, you know, their intentions are pure as Saiyaman X1 and X2. Their motivations set up here within the plot, within the story, to fight are interesting, because with Trunks, he has the pure desire to just fight strong opponents. So it's very, very, very similar to Goku, but it's also very, very similar to Vegeta. It's like if Vegeta was purified and he's a superhero. And Goten is the same thing. Like, Goten, he just wants peace. It's very, very Masako Nozawa even said herself one time that all Goku really wants is peace. So the fact that Goten is like that, and that is his motivation, is very interesting. I'm enjoying Goten and Trunks' characterization here. So Trunks decides, you know, before they do any of their superhero antics, he is going to ask out Mai. He wants to take Mai to a clean god movie, which he's going through that era of maturity where, you know, it's really easy for you to just like crush over a girl. And of course it's Mai. I mean, we all knew that was coming. But it's also established here that Mai is consistently more mature than Trunks. Mai just wants to stick around and do her work. She doesn't really want to like go out and do childish things. She wants to do her job, which almost as if she's taking this experience with Bulma as a learning experience, and Bulma is influencing Mai. That's the vibe that I get here, is that Bulma herself is influencing Mai, which is interesting because there is a character in Dragon Ball Online that seems like she could be a descendant of Trunks, Mai, Vegeta, Bulma, etc. So that's very interesting. So after Trunks gets shot down, he decides that it's time to go stop some criminals. Now, Trunks, you know, he doesn't have, I think he has a very stereotypical idea of what a ghost is, because Goten even calls attention to the fact, while they're running around looking for, you know, these beings that have been terrorizing Capsule Corp, that, you know, their fathers have both been dead, right? And it's funny because it's almost like the image of a ghost that Gotenks creates is the image of a ghost that Trunks is scared of in his own mind, which feeds into what I was saying before, where Goten helps Trunks conquer his fear of ghosts. So, and Goten being shocked Trunks is scared of ghosts is hilarious, and the fact that he denies even believing in them is just, it's so funny. This whole thing, it just cracks me up. So Trunks and Goten run into their first evidence of, you know, Dr. Hito's antics, and this character looks a lot like Frankenstein, which I would assume is definitely a nod at Android 8. Again, I see this as, you know, nods at the early era of Dr. Gero's experience as a scientist. The next character we are introduced to is very reminiscent of Bandages from the original Dragon Ball, the mummy character that Baba used to face Goku. A bunch of kids from the school have snuck into this building where all these guys who work for Hito reside. Trunks transforms into his superhero form and, of course, saves the day. So in the middle of Trunks fighting all of these androids, he loses his transformation. He loses his Saiyaman X1 costume, and all of his classmates see it. And quick thinking from Goten, he actually knocks out the power and lies to his schoolmates, saying that the monsters must have seen them must have had them see some sort of illusion, and they just go right along with it. So he essentially convinces these kids that this was all just the result of them being in a haunted house and seeing a bunch of illusions. Then we get this really cool callback to Buu Saga whenever the lights go out and Trunks uses Super Saiyan to light up the room and finish off this football zombie guy. Then Goten and Trunks come across a safe. Of course, this safe belongs to Dr. Hito. It had some confidential information from Dr. Gero, and so Trunks and Goten decide to take it home and check it out. And that's an interesting plot point. I'm interested to see where that's going. I'm not even sure that Hito knew what was on there. I think to him it was just, it was just like some sort of information that, you know, he had no clue about, and his curiosity won him out, and he wanted to see what Dr. Geto had up his sleeve, or what kind of information he had hid, you know, away. So maybe Geto just found whatever Dr. Geto might possibly have there interesting. I'm not even sure that he knew what is on there, because despite the fact that Dr. Geto says that the disc itself is one of a kind and that there's only one in the world, the fact that it has something on it that is one of a kind, that is not, you know, something that he is already aware of and able to just implement anytime he wants, suggests that it's possible that he may not even know what is in the disc himself. And so Dr. Geto finds evidence of who could have possibly done this. And essentially what's happening here, or what it seems to be happening here, is Dr. Geto is going to cause some trouble in the school that Trunks and Goten go through. So the very last page, Trunks shows up with some Dragon Ball Legends drip. According to Shu, so Trunks finds out that these robots have been smashed up, you know, at that old place where he was. And essentially what I'm gathering here is that thanks to Trunks, and what he did being kind of careless and rough with the androids, he actually caused all of this extra work for Mai. So he essentially screwed himself in his efforts to take Mai out on a date. Very funny way to wrap up the manga chapter. So this chapter was very, very enjoyable. It had a lot of nods and references to things all the way from the Pilaf era to the Buu saga and everything in between. It has tons of really cool little references and stuff you can catch if you're an old school Dragon Ball fan. I heavily enjoyed this chapter. I'm definitely excited to get back into some more, you know, high stakes, high action story material in the future. But this is a nice little change of pace, and the way that Toyotaro handled this change of pace particularly he did it well. The way he structured this particular chapter, it was very episodic. The way the events happened were very natural, very smooth. There was a great progression. There was, you know, lots of comedy, lots of action in between. This particular chapter is packed full of stuff. So yeah, I really enjoyed the chapter. Looking forward to the next one next month. I hope you enjoy my review of it. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.